Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at something absolutely massive, a profound global phenomenon. We're going to see how the firmness of principles, specifically within a major world religion, is quite literally drawing the map of our future. We're talking demographics, intense historical crucibles, and some really deep core philosophies.
To start off, I want you to pause for a second and ponder a real mystery with me. We live in this highly distracted, incredibly fast-paced modern world, right? So why does Islam maintain such a powerful, unwavering grip on its followers? How does this deep-rooted adherence not just survive, but actually thrive against intense global pressures and constantly shifting cultural norms?
Our source material points to what it calls an observable mystery. I mean, think about it. Every single year, millions of people voluntarily fast from the very start to the absolute end of Ramadan. Mosques are filling up globally, and they're packed with youth, despite all the modern distractions pulling for their attention. Plus, there is this completely unwavering belief in the Quran as a divine revelation. And the really remarkable part? None of this is forced. It's a willing, deeply rooted, daily commitment.
So the crucial point is, what's the actual engine driving this profound dedication? According to the author, if we want to understand these outward, observable actions, we have to dig much deeper. We have to look at the foundational philosophy that completely rewires a believer's worldview from the inside out.
And that core secret? It's all packed into a single foundational phrase. La ilaha illallah. There is no deity but God. Our source explains that this is way more than just a simple statement of belief. It's a declaration of absolute submission. And here's the wild paradox. By submitting entirely and exclusively to God, the believer is actually freed from all other forms of earthly enslavement. It's the total liberation of the mind and heart. You're no longer submitting to human dictators, societal pressures, or even your own personal desires.
To really hammer home this concept of total submission, the text points us directly to the Quran, specifically Surah Al-Nisa, verse 65. It reads, "But know, by your Lord, they will not truly believe until they make you, O Muhammad, judge concerning that over which they dispute among themselves, and submit with full, willing submission." This idea of taslim, which means unquestioning, willing submission, is literally the bedrock of the faith. There's no middle ground here. It's a complete, all-or-nothing framework.
The author sets up this really stark contrast between earthly enslavement and absolute submission to God. Think of it this way. When someone is driven just by worldly desires or forced to bow to human tyrants, they are essentially enslaved by finite things. But when they submit to the infinite, to God, they become untouchable by those earthly chains. True freedom in this framework comes from total obedience to divine law in every single aspect of life. It's honestly a fascinating kind of psychological armor.
Now, theories on paper are one thing, but reality is a whole different ballgame. So what actually happens when this invisible, supposedly unbreakable belief faces the ultimate test? How does this internal armor hold up against terrifying, physical, state-sponsored suppression? Well, the author gives us a pretty chilling historical case study to prove just how resilient this principle really is.
Let's move to and see how this builds during the 20th century, specifically looking at the communist attempt to just completely erase Islam. The Soviet regime unleashed this terrifying, massive machinery to extinguish the faith. I mean, they actively destroyed mosques or bizarrely converted them into anti-religion museums and even livestock stables. They burned Qurans en masse to eliminate the source text, and the ultimate penalty? Executing literally anyone who dared to display Islamic rituals or even possess a Quran.
The intended outcome of this incredibly brutal campaign was the absolute extinction of the religion. The state wanted it completely wiped from the memory of the earth. But the actual outcome that the author highlights is, well, it's almost hard to fathom. Today, in those very same regions, the mosques have roared back to life. They are packed with youth who are actively learning the Quran and practicing the faith. That seemingly unstoppable, brutal machinery of the state, it completely and utterly failed to extinguish the belief.
To really ground these massive historical facts, the source material shares this profoundly moving little microstory. Just picture a harsh, unforgiving, rocky environment where a tiny seed, somehow, against absolutely all odds, manages to sprout. The author tells this amazing story of a grandfather, an old man who was brutally killed by the regime under all that communist arrogance simply for being Muslim. His bones rot away, buried in history, and the state makes absolutely sure his children get zero religious education. Fast forward decades later, and his grandson miraculously finds his way back to the mosque to pray. How does that happen? The author uses this to show that Islam survived hidden deep in the heart, totally unextinguished, passing through generations completely under the radar of the state.
Now, for the believers, this survival isn't just chalked up to some lucky historical coincidence. No, it is viewed as the direct fulfillment of a divine promise. The text cites Surah Al-Hijj, verse 9, which says, "Indeed, it is we who sent down the Quran, and indeed we will be its guardian." This firmness of principle, this divine guarantee, is exactly what gives followers the absolute certainty that the religion will be maintained, even in the darkest, most oppressive times imaginable.
Now, what's really interesting about the data here is the concrete numbers backing up this narrative of survival and expansion. Based on Pew Research cited in our source, the projected annual population growth rates for Muslims consistently track significantly higher than the non-Muslim growth rate, and that's projected well into 2030. So we're not just looking at a survival story anymore. It's a story of rapid, basically unstoppable demographic momentum. And this brilliantly illustrates the core thesis. This unshakable ideological adherence is actively fueling massive demographic growth. Because of this momentum, we are witnessing a profound geopolitical shift from the east to the west. The author argues that all of this points to an inevitable trajectory toward the globalization of Islam. So, to bring it all together and summarize what we've unpacked today, the secret of absolute submission, that core concept of la ilaha illallah, is far, far more than just a historical survivor of oppression. According to the analysis we've explored, it is the active, driving force that is literally drawing the future map of the world. It dictates behavior, it ensures survival through extreme hardship, and it is driving a massive global demographic shift. Which leaves us with a pretty vital question to chew on. We are watching a massive demographic and ideological shift unfold right now in real time, driven by an unbreakable firmness of principle. As this future map is drawn toward the globalization of Islam, what will your role be in understanding and navigating this new reality? Something to think about, right? Keep learning, and we'll catch you next time on The Explainer.